Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. My name is Don Freeman.
I'm Krissy Moehl.
And I'm Scott Warr. This is another edition of The Aging Athlete. What does it mean to be a trail runner in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond? How did decades of movement shape your body, our minds, and our identities? This is the second episode in our Aging Athlete mini-series here on Trail Runner Nation, and it's co-hosted by our friend and legend, Krissy Moehl. She's a two-time UTMB champion. She's the youngest woman to claim the Grand Slam of Ultrarunning. She's a coach. She's the author of Running Your First Ultra. She's the race director of the storied Chuckanut 50K and spent decades pushing boundaries on the trails. Krissy, thanks for joining us. This series, about every 5 or 6 weeks, we're going to talk about the realities of aging as a runner, how we can train smarter, fuel wiser, recover deeper, stay motivated, and carry a lifetime of miles with strength, wisdom, and grace. Today's expert is Dr. Kelly Casperson. She's a board-certified urologist, host of the acclaimed You Are Not Broken podcast, and founder of the Casperson Urology and Hormone Clinic in Bellingham, Washington. She has become a go-to voice on hormone optimization, sexual health, and healthy aging. She'll help our endurance running listeners today translate cutting-edge hormone science into practical strategies that keep us training, recovering, and racing strong well into our master's years. Krissy, you brought Kelly into our knowledge here. Tell us a little bit about Dr. Casperson and why we hope to learn from her today.
I am so excited. Do you want us to call us Dr. Kelly, Dr. Casperson? How should we?
Kelly's fine. After the intro, so I'm always like, they should know why I say things. Okay, she went to med school. Now you can call me Kelly.
Thank you for being with us, Kelly. Kelly is one of the resources that I found when I just talked about it on some of our previous episodes of aging athlete, noticing things changing in my body. I'm like, hey, what's menopause going to do to this athlete bit? And to come to find out, my hormone cycle has been a big part of my whole athletic career. Just didn't know it as well. So finding resources and people that have been putting a lot more intention on specifically women's health. We're going to broaden the topic today. We have endurance athletes of all genders that listen here, and we want to tap your resources on that. You may have noted in Scott's intro, Kelly and I are both from Bellingham, Washington. So like extra stars that, oh my gosh, she's local. Like we have one of these awesome resources right here in Bellingham. I went to the M Factor where you did the opening and hosting for that night. It's an awesome documentary. If people have not seen that yet, highly recommend the M Factor. Kelly is featured in there as well. And the You Are Not Broken podcast is prolific. I have not been able to listen to all of the episodes, but definitely in my mainstream of listening. So super honor for me to have you here today. And I love your open approach to how you talk about hormones and sexual health and how that can be an indicator of overall health. And how do we want to get this rolling? I have so many questions.
I have a question.
Let's start with the first one. Let's start with the first question.
I just want to encourage you to correct our language. Like the three of us are here to learn. And so if we're like get going or vamping on something, you're like, wait, back up. Like we would love that autocorrect from you if that would be possible. So if one of you guys want to jump in with a question, go. I've got my list over here.
I'm curious, what is the M Factor? I have never heard of that. What is that a conference?
Yeah. No, so it's a documentary. It's a PBS documentary done by an award-winning documentarian who's done amazing work. And basically, it's kind of uncovering or telling the story of how bad it is right now, and the kind of the culture of medicine that dismisses women in not feeling well in midlife, and kind of how the culture and the fear of hormones has really created a normalization of suffering. And my bit in it, I'm the like sex med testosterone guru. and had some patients who were gracious enough. So the documentary team actually came to Bellingham, filmed me talking to my patients, kind of telling their stories of what life was like before they started hormones and then how their life got better. So it's about an hour long on PBS. It just got international rights. This documentary has been shown in over 30 countries now. Like
Wow.
it is literally, it took off because it just strikes a nerve for so many people of like, yes, this is the lived experience that is happening right now.
And
Something that
everybody
stood out
goes
to me-
through it.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Krissy. Everybody goes through that phase at some point. And if we're lucky enough to be around that long, it's a common path for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and something struck me is that it got credit for continuing education credits for medical, and I was like, but a documentary, like there's not much out there for doctors to even learn. So this documentary is got that status as well, which I think is also telling of how much information is out there.
Yeah. It's, I mean, we lost 2 decades of physicians being trained in hormones because after the Women's Health Initiative blew up in 2002, everybody just got incredibly afraid. And it turns out that it was bad science. It was bad science. It was bad marketing. It was media going for big attention grabbing, and the actual truth of the study, which is free online for anybody to read. They can actually go read the study. It's not like it's behind a vault. And to realize like, actually, it wasn't that bad. It was more the misinterpretation and the like dogma of fear that took over. And so we literally have 2 generations of healthcare providers that don't know about how to treat women in menopause. So we have 80 million women over the age of 40 in the United States alone. This is a big problem.
Kelly, I want to thank you already. This may be the first episode of our 727 episodes or 30 episodes that she's going to listen to, because she was just talking to me the other day and saying it's crazy why there has been no research, medical research, that has included women. And we know so little about women. How did you get started on this journey to where you are today? Why did you decide to take this route?
The universe. So, I mean, the story, it's a cool story, actually. So I was in Bellingham for 7 years. I private practice urologist. For people who don't know, urologists are surgeons of the genital urinary tract. So kidneys, ureters, bladders, testicles, scrotum, urethra. I do a lot of female bladder leakage and vaginal prolapse work. And 7 years in, I don't know if anybody's heard of the 7-year itch. I got the 7-year itch. I'm like, what did I do all this training for? I'm bored. I'm just repeating myself 20 times a day. Like I was really like, is this all there is to this career? And I had a patient come in who I was very bonded with, and she was crying about her sexless marriage. And the lightning struck my brain, and I was like, I don't know how to help her. Does anybody know how to help her? Do the gynecologists know how to help her? Here I am giving Viagra and testosterone to all the men. 90% of men are heterosexual. Who's taking care of the people they want to be sleeping with? Right. So it was this big aha. And so dove into female sexual health, started the podcast, started the Instagram, wrote the book. And then people said, yeah, but you know what happens to your sex life with menopause? And I'm like, I don't know. And they kept saying it. Well, you know what happens to your sex life with menopause? And I'm like, no. And people kept saying it enough. And I'm like, listen, I'm staring down the barrel too. Like, I should probably figure out what happens to your sex life with menopause. And started to research, like, what's the role of hormones in sexual health and what does happen? And is it over for sure? And why are people afraid of hormones? What's this Women's Health Initiative thing? So it was really like my innate curiosity of peeling off the layers of the onion. And so I always joke, sex got me into menopause, because that was the reason why. And now I'm like, there's so much misinformation and fear that you have to get over that. You can't just say like, everybody should take hormones, because people don't know what a hormone is. They don't understand that it's not trying to kill you. So there's this big like zeitgeist of fear that you have to crack through. But it's like the most rewarding part of medicine ever, is to hear people say, I feel like myself again. That is the best thing that I can get out of my day. And so I basically changed my whole practice to be like, sex, med, and hormones. That's all I do now, because it is my favorite thing to help people with.
Are you saying that for a typical person, sort of the majority of people, should they be taking supplemental hormones as they go through that transition?
Yeah, it's a good question, and no menopause expert will ever say everybody should. That's like very strong wording in our world to say everybody should. This is where my stance is, because people will say, they're like, do you just want everybody to be on blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, no, I want people to have the education so that they make the decision if they want to be on blah, blah, blah. And that education is, what is a hormone? How does it help the body? Because right now, people's understanding of menopause is you can't get pregnant anymore and you're done with periods. That's what people think menopause is. And what menopause actually is you are outliving your ovarian function. Ovaries make testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. Those are the main commercially available hormones, right? And those hormones, all hormones are communicators. An organ makes a communicator, it travels somewhere else in the body and it communicates and it helps cells function. And we're talking cellular function, like on the mitochondrial level. And this is nerves, this is muscles, this is bone, this is joints. And so what you are basically outliving the life of the ovary, which many, many, many animals do. That's the other myth of like humans and 3 whales are the only things that do have. That is not true. Especially if you put the mammals in what I call aging in captivity, which is what we're all doing. We have clean water, we have safe lives, we can treat trauma and cancer pretty well. So we're all aging in captivity. And you take any mammal and you age them in captivity. There's a harbor seal in the Portland Aquarium right now that's like 49 years old. In real life, they live to 18, right? And so that's what humans are doing. We're aging in captivity. We're really good at infectious disease. We're really good at trauma care. We're really good at, clean water. So we're living as a society way longer than what we used to. Average age, if you were lucky, you could make it to like 60. You could make it to like 65. If you look at aristocratic men in England in the 1400s, these are the wealthiest, richest dudes who didn't die in childbirth. Average age of death, 41. Right? So everybody was like, my great grandma lived to blah, blah, blah. That's wonderful. That was an outlier. As a society, we've never lived this long. And so now you're faced with, hey, I have the great privilege, especially for women, average life expectancy, 81 in America. I have the great privilege of making it 40 years with no functioning ovaries. That's where the consequences happen. It's like, it doesn't really matter if you're going to die at 62. It's a couple of years without some hormones. You're going to go 40 years without any hormones. And that adds up. The body functions better with hormones. So that's my big, long answer to should everybody be on hormones is like, well, you can't really have the female longevity movement without discussing it.
Something you said that the M factor was, and like this kind of ties into the aging piece, is what we're doing now is what sets us up for those years. And I feel like that kind of ties in, like we want to be aware of whether it's taking hormones or going for a run or whatever aspect we're trying to improve our health. We are creating the body that gets to be, I'm 48, gets to be 68, gets to maybe be 88. And I'm just vamping on what you said, not really a question at that point. I do have some question about hormones, but I wanted to, Dawn, did you want to go?
Yeah, I have a question. There are risks, health risks for losing hormones. There are things that happen. We can discuss that. Are there risks for introducing these hormones that our body wasn't used to having? Do I have a health risk because I want to take some hormone that you prescribe? What's going to happen to me? Only good? Or is there issues?
So these hormones, the hormones we use now, on average, are the hormones your body used to make. What do I mean like that? Diabetics who take insulin, it's the insulin you would have already made. Thyroid, it's the thyroid you already made. Estradiol, it's the estradiol your ovary makes. That's what people will call it bioidentical, right? It's like, this is not a blood pressure medication or antidepressant. Like, those are all synthetic pharmaceuticals. This is literally just giving you back what you already made. The risk of that is minimal. And I always ask people, I ask doctors too, I'm like, what's a safer drug than a hormone? And no, there's no safer drug than what your body already made. right? Incredibly rare to have side effects. Side effects happen. There's side effects. People take a placebo pill and there's side effects, right? So there's always side effects, but the side effects for replacing what your body already made, whether it's insulin, thyroid, estradiol, testosterone, when you do it in safe doses, is incredibly low risk. And like you said, this is all genders. We have this data in men. Men who have low testosterone, that's about 20% of men, have low testosterone, have higher rates of dementia, depression, heart disease, insulin resistance, diabetes, metabolic syndrome. And so it's really anybody that doesn't have the hormones that the body functions well with can have consequences.
Boy, it sounds to me like there's a bigger risk of not getting it evaluated and learning what's going on.
That's where the culture is going now, is if you choose, because to go answer the question, the experts are not going to say everybody should be on hormones. We think that's too strong of a statement. But you have to realize your choice to not take hormones, if your hormones are low, also has consequences over time. Mm. So there's a risk to not helping your ovaries out.
One thing that you said earlier that I'd like to get into is you said that hormones are the communicator and they go down to the cellular level, including the mitochondria. Well, as runners, we've heard the name or that term mitochondria. It's something that we love. We want lots of mitochondria so that we can work harder, we can recover quicker, we can have harder workouts. Tell us about that relationship, and as we age, how does that affect the ability for us to train and recover?
Yeah, one of the things I see, again, any gender, what I see in people with low hormones is two things. I just don't have the energy to even start to work out, right? So it's like, people will be like, just work out more. And they're like, I don't even have the energy to work out, right? And you just give them their hormones back, and then they're like, okay, I can work out now, right? So it actually builds. I think one belief is like, well, you got to do all the like non-hormonal lifestyle things first. And it's like some people with low hormones, they don't have the energy to even start doing that. So that's one thing I see. The other thing I see is it takes me a lot longer to recover. I can go hike up a big mountain, but I'm wiped after that. And it takes me a couple of days. The amount it takes to recover is longer when you don't have the cellular functioning that you had when you had hormones. And that's, mitochondria is like, that's our powerhouse, right? For muscles. And so that is a common thing that people with low hormones will say. They're like, I just don't recover after a workout like I used to.
I was going to steer a little bit from that. You said before we started recording, I think that we have a lot of athletes aging. Like we're seeing this like boom, and a lot of them are female. And I tie back to Title IX, early 70s being passed. So we're there were, like you said, outliers. There's women that have been athletes coming up, but this is the generation. Like it came in my life. I benefited at the University of Washington because the more cross-country girls we had on the running track and running during track season, the more men they could have on the football field. So there was just this that was the early language. And now we have all these women doing rad things like the 4-minute mile effort yesterday. It was so cool. One question I had that as it pertains to training, I think a lot of our training cycles are based on like a male hormone cycle, which is like a 24-hour cycle, female cycle being a 28-day cycle. Have you kind of worked in your world of understanding, like, how do we work with the gender that we're working with in terms of their training? So not to just say we shouldn't use the men's cycle, people that are on a 24-hour testosterone hormone recovery cycle versus a woman's. Do you have like information on how you would kind of tailor training?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an exercise physiologist by any means. And just me paying attention to it, there seems to be two schools of thought. The one who's like the really strict school of thought is like, they tend to be selling a course or, something of like, you got to time it by the moon. And, it's like kind of all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know, like probably of all these things, training fasted seems to hurt women more. Like women need a little bit of energy in the tank. But again, I'm not I don't claim to be the exercise physiologist on that, and I'm sure it varies by sport too. To me, I'm like, we could all benefit by just listening to our bodies a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%.
So right along with Krissy's comment about 28-day cycle, say I have a race coming up, a big race that I am just been planning on for years. Should I look at my personal menses cycle and look at the race date? Is there a better time to race for a female?
I mean, again, I'm not an exercise physiologist in knowing that, but to me, I'm like, don't you think we would have figured that out by now if it was something that was significant? Like,
right.
We've been doing this for a while. If it was that obvious, if everybody you could fit into the right box of like only run when you're ovulating, like we would have figured that out by now.
That sounds like common sense, Kelly. That's good. We should use that.
Yeah, it totally.
Your hormones coming up as you start to bleed. If your symptoms aren't as bad, some of my personal best performances have been on the week that I'm bleeding. All of my education leading up to that would have been to stay in your house and just deal with it. And like when I've been out there and wonderful this has started, that's when I set the Tahoe Rim Trail FKT was day 1 and 2 of my period. So there is like counter culture in terms of, you would think that would be a hard time, but hormones wise, that's when things are shifting again and our energy levels can come back.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, the variation in between women is still so great, right? Like maybe a woman's eating more during her period, so she's got more fuel, right? And it's not just hormones. So maybe she's sleeping better. So it's, I mean, to overgeneralize and say all women aren't as strong during their luteal phase seems like a big leap to me.
I like where you're going with that.
Good point. Yeah.
People respond differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Kelly, when you have a patient come to you, how do they know that they need to come to you? So if I'm out there and I'm doing
they've gotten shitty care in other places. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll stop interrupting.
And what's your phone number? I think we're going to bring you a lot of business.
People come see me now. Yeah, you go.
I was just going to say, if I'm out doing my normal workouts, how do I self-diagnose or at least raise the question, I'm struggling during my workouts. Is this something that is hormonal related, or is this something that maybe I'm just training too hard? How do I know? Are there some signs that we should be looking out for where we should say, I need to go talk to Kelly?
Yeah, there aren't always signs. I mean, sometimes it's like the zeitgeist right now, both for all genders, is like people are talking about hormones, which is great, and it's not great. And the reason why it's not great is some people think hormones will fix everything. It's like, no, they're just messenger communicators in our body that helps our cells function. Like they're incredibly powerful and useful, but they don't fix everything, right? But for better or for worse, people are really talking about it right now in all genders, right? And the symptoms or the signs can be very vague of like, my sleep's off. I'm not getting the results I used to see when I would work out in a workout. I'm just not, my body isn't showing that as much, or I'm like eating the same and exercising the same, but like my belly's getting bigger, or I'm putting on weight that I used to like not have that problem. So it's just kind of like subtle stuff for women who do have periods at the very end of perimenopause. Again, defining perimenopause as the years up to menopause. So in the final years, the periods will start spacing out or getting heavy or not being regular anymore. So that's a nice sign for women to be like, hey, things are changing. But 1/3 of women don't have periods. So because they have a hysterectomy or an IUD or birth control or an ablation or blah, blah, blah. So I mean, periods aren't a great sign for everybody.
Is there time to start? Oh, sorry, Don, go ahead.
No, you first, Krissy.
Just the question, is there a best time to, I mean, I'm going symptom related, it would be my answer, but do you see a best time to start? Like with the menopause, the test or the study that came out said was done on women that were like 10 years post menopause, if I remember correctly. I'm seeing huge benefits by starting little baby doses, like while I'm still cycling regularly. Some of my symptoms have been more mood and just feeling in my body, and I'm noticing a difference having it now. So I guess maybe comparing those while someone's still cycling coming up through, or, and again, as we've said, individuals, but what would you say maybe as a general?
Yeah. I mean, I think where this is going, if you're like 10 years from now, what's going to be a lot more common? We're going to be treating perimenopause a lot more. We're just starting to treat perimenopause right now because people think that there's something magical about a period, of like, oh, you can't have hormones because you still have a period. I'm like, period, it's not telling you anything. It's not a permission slip, like people, you stop ovulating and being able to get pregnant years before your periods end, right? Periods are literally meaningless as far as like a permission slip. And I mean, the other interesting thing is when you look at bone preservation, thinking, again, who do you want to be when you're 84, right? 50% of women will have a fracture. There are more hospitalizations for fracture in America than stroke and heart attack combined. Mortality after a hip fracture within 1 year, 30%. And when do you have to start caring about those bones? You have to start caring about those bones now in perimenopause. The biggest rate of change for bone loss for women is the 2 years prior to your periods ending. Well, that's stupid. How do you know when your periods are going to end? Right? So what we're saying is the sooner the better, as far as you can't feel your bones getting less dense. Right. And so when people say like, hey, just go by symptoms, it's like some people do not have symptoms, but they want to, what's better, preserving bones or treating osteoporosis? So you say preserving bones. Right. And that's where the hormones come in. So to answer your question, perimenopause, me and all of my menopause expert clinicians, we treat perimenopause all the time. And the data supports perimenopause is actually way more symptomatic because your hormones are going up, down, up, down, up, down. And the body's very sensitive to changes versus menopause, you've got no hormones. That's at least a stable state, right? So the perimenopause is actually quite symptomatic. And we know the perimenopausal woman is undertreated because of this myth that you're fine because you're having periods.
So if I'm listening to this and I'm a younger female or male, I like that you're putting both genders. This is a multi-gender topic, which is great. And we just haven't separated them. And I'm listening to this thinking, yeah, I'm young and good. When should I really start thinking about this hormone replacement? When should I, do I have to wait till I have gray hair and I'm old, or when do I start thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think now is good. We all have our biases, right? Like if I close my eyes and you tell me to think of a postmenopausal woman, I'm thinking of like Betty White from the Golden Girls. So like that's our societal bias of what menopause is. We're like, dude, perimenopause, mid-30s, end of 30s, for all people. But that's, the fact that we get to call 50 years old midlife is like this massive privilege. Right? Or like, we're actually saying this is mid. It's pretty sweet. In men, we don't, not all men outlive the function of their testicles, but some do. About 20% have low testosterone. Why we don't screen for men is beyond me. I think men should get screened for testosterone when think of an age about 45, 50. Like it's super easy just to check a testosterone and see how it's doing, because you don't always know and the symptoms aren't always clear cut. Now for women, they'll be like, my doctor didn't check my labs. And I'm like, you're 65. I can tell you what your estradiol is. It's 0, right? Like you don't need lab tests for postmenopausal women. We know they're low. So the other thing about, when should we start thinking about this is we all know that pregnancy happens. We all know that puberty happens. We don't all know that menopause happens. It's been this huge, siloed silence. That's for old people. Like it's as common as puberty. And it's a huge hormonal change like pregnancy and puberty. So it's like, we're used to our bodies going through hormonal changes. We've actually done it several times already. But for everybody to understand, this is what happens. Ovaries are only so big. There's only so many cells in the ovaries. And after a certain timeline, we've run through them and we want to continue to live. That's called menopause. And we're in a great, amazing time where we actually have hormones to give you. We didn't have that 200 years ago.
And there's so much life to live after menopause. To talk to the
Yep.
the 80-year-old that still wants to. I mean, we see it; it's happening. Outliers, like there's more of us coming, right?
I mean, I'm to the point, and a lot of menopause experts they can do this, is if I have a woman walk into my clinic, I say a woman in her 80s, I can tell you if she's on hormones or not.
Huh.
And you're like, what does that mean? It's like she's coming in without a walker, without a cane. Usually has tennis shoes on. She's like picking her grandkids up from preschool. Like she's active, she's vital. She wants to keep moving. Her skin actually looks better because hormones and collagen, right? Your skin doesn't get as thin. And so I'm not perfect at it, but when they come in, because remember, after the WHI, some doctors knew that study was bullshit and they kept their patients on hormones. So we have this small group of 80-year-olds who've been on hormones their whole postmenopause life. And I'm like, we need to learn from them. Because you know what they all say? I will die with this patch on.
Huh.
Right?
You know-
So we're like, I don't know what happens when you've been on. It's like, ask the 85-year-old who's been on hormones for 40 years how she's doing. She will tell you, I'm not going to stop. I will take this to the grave.
I think you've led me at least to this next question. You know, we talk about the physiological benefit and the bone density and, you know, muscle recovery and all of that stuff. But if you could, because you deal with this, let's talk about the mental piece. I mean, what kind of performance difference do you see in the mental side of someone?
Yeah. So I think it's a huge disservice that we call these hormones sex hormones, because sex is extra. Sex isn't, we don't really need to prioritize sex, right? You're not having babies anyways. So like, why are we? These are not sex hormones. They got stereotyped that because they were discovered in like bull ovaries and rooster testicles, right? So that's why they're called sex hormones. These are neurochemicals. They are neurohormones. They literally protect the glial cells, the myelin sheaths, the nerve conduction. These are brain neurohormones. And again, going into like, why should we be taking these? Of like, because they're communicators and they help cells function. We know that men that have low testosterone have a higher risk of depression and dementia. We know that. Why aren't we screening? Why aren't we screening and trying to find these men to help them out, right? And in women, it's a little bit more complicated because we don't have, again, same that we're going back to, we don't have the years of research that we have in men with low hormones. So there is a little bit of gender bias there. But if you look at depression is significant in perimenopause. We know estrogen helps it. We've got multiple papers on that, and nobody knows that. So it's brain protective. And again, the feeling of like, I just feel like myself is the best thing you can give back to somebody. And I see that frequently when we give people back estrogen and testosterone.
Wow.
And we can, dementia, if we want to chat about dementia for 3 minutes, because it's super important. So this is how I think about dementia. On average age of dementia diagnosis is in your 70s, and the lion's share of dementia people are women. And they're like, it's because women live longer. Women live about 4 years longer than men. Dementia, on that awful Tuesday that you get diagnosed with dementia, it started 20 years ago. So that's how we know it's not just because women live longer, right? And they live to 81, and it starts at 76, all the things. So it's not just because women live longer. Well, what happened 20 years prior to that 74-year-old getting diagnosed with dementia? Menopause, right? And so we've got a devastating condition. In Australia, in 2026, the number one killer of Australians is dementia. Like, it is now time that this is a big problem. There's no cure. The medications that are FDA approved are crappy at best. They're just going to halt it. They're not going to cure it. And they're $30,000 a year. And by the way, the side effect is like brain hemorrhage. So we do not have great care happening for this. So why aren't we more interested in prevention, right? And again, it's the starting when, like the question was, when do you start? Well, you have to start 20 years prior to the dementia happening in order to, so this is protection, right? Who do you want to be when you're 80? You actually have to start thinking about it now, because hormones don't treat disease. Hormones work best preventing disease. And that's the power of the hormones, is like, you can't decide once you have dementia and osteoporosis at 76 to go on hormones to reverse everything. It's not how it works. And so it's a different medicine, Western medicine in America. We like to fix you once you're broken.
Yeah.
Hormones are very different than that. It's like, don't start exercising once you're already sick. It's like you exercise to help decrease your risk of getting sick. Hormones is within that same camp. But it really is a culture change towards prevention. Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who's a big brain hormone researcher in New York, published a study about 2 years ago saying, with all the data we have, our best guess is start estrogen early, and you have about a 20% decreased risk of dementia if you do that.
Wow,
As
that's
I
huge.
listen to you speak on this, and I think about the day that your Tuesday that you said had that 7-year itch, it was so important. I could see how that fueled you in the direction that you've headed. This is such an important message, and I'm glad I'm receiving it. And anybody that's listening will refer it to somebody, even if they're not a runner. If they're a human that's breathing, that 98.6, they need to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, humans are immensely curious about ourselves. I mean, how many medical dramas are on TV, right? We're hugely curious about how our bodies work, and we want to optimize it. And this topic has been shrouded in fear and stigma and all these like myths. And so like that also adds to the allure of like, dude, maybe everything you think about menopause and hormones is wrong.
Right. We change it.
Let's talk a little bit about the way our healthcare system is structured here in the U.S. If someone is interested in getting their levels checked and or going on some type of a hormone therapy, is this something that our system is set up for? Can you go into a general practitioner as a woman or as a man and say, "Hey, I'm feeling some changes here. Can we get tested? Can you test me for this? And if I'm low, can you prescribe this?" Is it that easy, or do we need to, push through to get to a specialist like yourself and have the insurance companies deny it 5 times and fight them?
Yeah.
How do we get the
Very
therapy?
good question. How do we get it? So any physician should know about menopause and low hormones. This is 50% of humans go through menopause. So that, the stereotype of like, oh, just the gynecologist should handle that. There's 40,000 gynecologists in the United States of America. There's 80 million women over the age of 40. One group of physicians cannot be responsible for 50% of the humans. That does not math, right? This should be primary care. It should be internal medicine, cardiology. All of the people should know about menopause. 100%. It happens to 50% of bodies, right? This is normal human biology, basically. So that's the first thing. We've lost ground for 2 decades because of the Women's Health Initiative coming out saying the hormones your body makes are trying to kill you. Not true at all. And so what we're doing now, me, my friends, people like me, is we're actually educating the humans. And then the humans go in and we say, we're sorry. You are going to know more than your doctor about this right now. But I promise you, we're getting enough of you going in that they are starting to teach themselves in droves. So doctors more than ever are like, I didn't learn this, but people are coming in asking and I want to do it right. That's how you get the culture of medicine to change.
Nice.
Not the top down, the bottom up. And so we're bottom upping this because women are smart and they want to be playing pickleball when they're 76. Like they know what they want to be doing. And our job is to get them there. The good news is there are many online clinics now because there are a lot of places where you just don't have the resource of a primary care doctor who can do this. So there's many online clinics. Some of them take insurance. Some of them do not take insurance. But that is becoming the good thing about the online menopause clinics is they're there to treat menopause. And for primary care or the doctor in your town, I always say call and ask first. Like, don't wait till you're sitting in front of them to be like, do you believe that perimenopause is real? Right? Like, you've already paid for parking. You've already taken the day off of work. Like, ask ahead of time. And the online clinics are great resources. Testosterone is a problem because of the athletes. We'll call it the athletes messed up testosterone for all of America because of the Olympic doping scandals of the 1980s. East Germany won a bunch of golds, right? Everybody was doping. And our Congress didn't want athletes to dope. And so they passed the Anti-Doping Act of 1991. All synthetic anabolic steroids, except for one hormone our body naturally makes, was included on that list, and that was testosterone. So testosterone currently in America is regulated like narcotics. It's what we call a Scheduled 3. Makes it very difficult for telemed, makes it very difficult, for multiple states in telemed. Every physician needs a state DEA license to prescribe oxycodone, ketamine, and this one hormone your body naturally makes because of the doping athletes, testosterone. So part of our advocacy is deregulating testosterone to make it be like a prescription like everything else, because it perpetuates the stigma that this is something that's dangerous. And it simply is not true.
And that's where my mind was reading. If I participate in this, I'm not sure it's therapy at all. Therapy, it sounds to me like you're trying to fix something. I think you're supporting something and not trying to fix something. Am I at risk of being a performance enhancing drug participant at the start line of my next race if I'm using this hormone replacement?
Yeah. So that is an area that is changing. It's all regulated depending upon what level of sport you're in. I am not a complete expert in all of that. My understanding is, at least for the not completely elite athletes, if you're under a doctor's care, that's allowed. We're going to see this more and more and more. Right now, and again, this changes and it depends upon what authority you're under. Postmenopausal women are allowed to be on estrogen and progesterone, but they're having a heck of a time with testosterone. But men are allowed to be on testosterone if they have a physician's letter. So very ever changing. There was just a paper published on this that postmenopausal women want to be able to take the hormones that their body naturally makes. But it gets feisty very quickly in that arena. Because you're like, listen, I just told you that these hormones help your muscles, help your bones, help your joint pain, and help your brain. That could be construed as performance enhancing compared to the people who aren't on them. Right. So in sport, I think that gets very interesting. And I always want to respect that. I don't want to overstep anything because I'm not on. People have asked me to sit on those committees and I'm like, it is heated. It gets very heated. How do you make everybody equal? So
and the main thing is getting to feeling like yourself. Like you've said, that is such a gift to what this can do for people. And so if I'm feeling like myself, why is that performance enhanced? Why, like if I am at such a detriment, this is the level, right? Like here's where like normal hormones are. Mine are bottoming out. I feel like crap. I can't recover, but I'm just getting back to here, like back to what that baseline is, as opposed to excelling or beyond performance enhancing.
Yeah.
That's the argument.
To me, like it's incredibly complicated. How do we know? Do we test you? Are blood levels accurate? No, blood levels aren't always accurate. Is the dosing what matters? Well, people need different doses to feel like themselves, right? So it's like it gets complicated pretty quickly.
That was a quick follow-up I had to a while ago when you said getting men tested. Why don't we test men 45 for testosterone, see where they're at? And for women, it's not necessarily recommended because at 10 a.m. on day 3 versus 6 p.m. on day 15, we're going to be all over the map in terms of where our hormones are. Is that different for men? Is it a more regular, like you can get a good gauge?
Yeah, but before 9 a.m. is what's recommended in men because you make what's that?
Any day of the month, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they don't have a cycle. But testosterone is made when we sleep. That's why sleep is so important. Is like sleep makes testosterone. So you'll see shift workers have lower testosterone. They're not sleeping regularly. Their testosterone production will go down. But that's a big hoop that women get into because they're like, no doctor will check my hormones. And it's like, dude, your hormones are all over the place in perimenopause, right? And the problem, I'm happy to check hormones. It's very validating for people. They feel like they're heard and listened to and that we're doing something. But I'm like, do not hold Tuesday at 8 a.m. to be this is what it always means for you. That's not how hormones work in perimenopause. But for the medical definition of low testosterone in men is two readings of low before 9 a.m. ideally.
Kelly, recently or earlier this year, you may have heard it was all over the mainstream media, but in our little community of ultra running, is a pretty big story. A friend of ours who's been on the podcast a few times, Stephanie Case, 43-year-old woman, went out and did this race, 100K mountain race, and she was nursing her child, and had to stop multiple times as she was nursing her child. Talk to us about that stage of life where you're, pregnant. We talked about, going through puberty and pregnancy and menopause. What about during pregnancy and in those years? How does that play with normal athletic endurance and training and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to shout out that female bodies are Ferraris. Like I think I want to set the tone, because I think so many people look at the female body like it's difficult and it's too challenging to study, and it's got too many moving parts. Of like, that's what a Ferrari does. That's a Ferrari. It's highly tuned. It does a lot of amazing things, as opposed to the Honda, which is kind of, you get what you get, and it holds up no matter how much you beat on it, and it doesn't take much. I'm like, no offense to the men, but they're Hondas. They're reliable. They run.
They have good resale. They're
good resale. They don't create life, right? They don't create life. So I just always want to set the tone, because I think so many people take a Ferrari as a problem instead of realizing the amazingness of Ferraris. Of like, oh my God, the women's bodies. I was just reading a book about powerlifting. And they're like, if we actually measured success in powerlifting as endurance, how much can you continue to lift? They're like, women would dominate the men in this sport. But that's not what they do. They do one lift, right? But the men are fried, but the women can keep going. Like they are built to have endurance. And so when you're talking about the ultra runner, I'm like, that is like, what an example of a body that can put up with grueling endurance. That not only can it continue running, but it can continue to make milk.
Wow.
So it's insane. It's just incredible. So I didn't answer your question so much as acknowledge Ferraris. Like,
I think that's good
amazing.
enough.
Yeah, a great call out, Scott. And I love the Ferrari response. Stephanie totally rocked that like a Ferrari would.
Yeah, and I mean, I want other women to realize, like, not everybody's Stephanie, and not everybody should do that. That is
right.
So I just want to be careful to be like, just because some people are capable doesn't mean everybody should, because I think people get into this like compare and despair a little too much. Of like, it's okay if you can't do that, right? That's okay too.
And knowing the body that went into it. See, Stephanie's been running for decades.
Yeah, the training.
Yeah.
Doctor, we know we have a hard stop here because you have patients coming in about 3 minutes to your clinic. And I wish I was one of those patients, by the way. And so if you feel like I could listen to this for another segment, she has plenty of segments on her podcast called You're Not Broken, correct? And it can be found anywhere on any podcast platform. And I think I for one, will be one to tune in and listen.
Thank you. Yeah, we're at episode up in the 300s now. I've been doing it for 5.5 years.
Congratulations!
So still haven't run out of things to talk about.
You just don't. I mean, running is left foot, right foot, and we're still talking.
That's funny.
And also in the show notes, we'll include the links. But her first book is namesake to the podcast. You're Not Broken. Stop shoulding all over your sex life. And then the new book, The Menopause Moment, Mindset, Hormones, and the Science for Optimal Longevity. Boy, that seems like it should. And when does it release? Do you know?
That's
when
September
it's available?
16th. Yeah, September 16th.
Okay, so we gotta
Pre-orders
be
are up
patient.
now. Yeah, but you can pre-order now. Audiobooks
excellent.
up too.
Oh, good.
Pre-orders help authors.
Pre-orders help authors.
You can find out more also about Kelly at kellycaspersonmd.com. And if you're in Bellingham, Washington, you better get in line. That's all I have to say, because Kelly sounds amazing. There's 4 of us that are listening during the recording that will probably get in line.
And Kelly does a great job on Instagram all your posts. Keep people, like, if you're looking for little sound bites, reminders, helpful, like positive, like check in on yourself, your Instagrams. That for me, so I can at least vouch for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of fun on Instagram for sure.
Krissy, thank you so much for making this connection. We appreciate you for doing that.
Right on. Well, Kelly, yeah, thanks for accepting the invitation.
Totally. This went so fast. It was a blast.
I want to ask you one last question. Is there something that you needed to say on this episode that you haven't yet said that people ought to know?
It is not a weakness to support your body.
Love it.
Ooh.
That's a great one.
So take that wisdom, put it in your brain, think about it as you lace up your shoes and go out and run.
Mas.